Welcome back to the Human Nexus podcast. My name is Andrew Brazis. I am a business and marketing consultant and private chef.
My name is Miss Laura Machiste. I am a online tarot reader, holistic massage therapist, and energy worker. And today we have Audrey as our guest. Audrey, would you like to tell them about yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you guys for having me on. I'm so excited. I've been definitely following along and loving the content so far. So it's really, truly my pleasure to be here. So my name is Audrey Acevedo, and I am a trauma-informed holistic somatic practitioner and facilitator. And I came to be here today because I actually know Miss Laura Machiste.
Yes, we are suite members with each other. We both are in the same suite. And Audrey was actually one of the first people that I connected to. And right away, I felt her vibe. And it was so similar to mine, so much in like looking for the signs and spirituality. And it made me feel so like welcomed in a sense. Also, she when you are making decisions in life, but you're not sure if like you made the right decision to go here, to go there, like meeting Audrey, my first like month being in the suites, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I made the right decision. I'm around the right people. And now I'm just learning so much from you, as it is such a nice journey to be on with someone that also is in like I guess you could say, what do we do? Like the body? How would you,
Yeah,
what would you call
so
that?
anything that is having to do with the soma, which is the body, so holistic healing from really the inside out, starting with the body first.
So you two work together,
Mm-hmm.
well, in the same area, and you're doing, Laura, you do massage work and you're doing body work as well.
Yes, so I don't offer massage. I am a therapeutic stretch therapist. I'm a therapeutic
Okay.
stretch therapist, and I'm also a somatic breathwork facilitator. So those are the services I offer. So in addition to the therapeutic stretching and breath work, I also help my clients by kind of curating different recovery tools and implementing them and integrating them into the session. So really based off of what um, ailment or goal are coming to me for, I will oftentimes just kind of mix everything up and to a nice bodywork soup for them.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like our energies go hand in hand, because she does things with the body that like I can do those things, but it's not something that I went to school to do. Like I went to school to massage. So it's nice having like a stretchologist there. If like somebody wants their whole body stretched, like I don't feel like doing that. Audrey's right there. I trust her. I know her. So like it's been nice of like a referral type of thing as well. And it's interesting enough with like energy, because I'm constantly reading and picking up on energy. Like I know when they're from Audrey, because they just like have like that different type of like aura to them, if that makes
It's so
sense.
interesting. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting.
I would have to say same thing, like the clients that you have referred to me definitely have like that Laura vibe to them. And I remember when uh, Laura actually opened her suite, um, I was like the first one to run over and get a massage because, as a bodywork practitioner, it's so important to also take care of yourself too. And I think oftentimes either we space it out too much or neglect ourselves because we're servicing our clients. So I was literally the first one on her roster. I like ran over, I booked her right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the name. I was like, I felt a vibe with the name. I was like, okay, so she offers massage, but I'm feeling a little bit of like energy or a spiritual vibe. And that's like right up
Mm-hmm.
my alley. Um, and then when we met, it's like one of those situations where it's not like you knew somebody forever and you just vibe right away. And, come to find out a little bit later as I delved a little bit more deeper into like astrology. It's always something that I've been really interested in just, for my own practical purposes and rituals and like moon rituals and stuff. We happen to work with the same astrologer
Mm-hmm.
And he put our charts together, and come to find out our souls have actually known each other in other lives. And everything just made sense from that point. We're like, of
Do you,
course.
do
Right.
you guys do you guys feel that? Sorry to interrupt you, but do
Yeah.
you feel that like soul connection? Like, is it obvious? Or I
Oh
guess
yeah.
So
was
obvious.
it in the beginning?
Fireworks went off when I met
Yeah.
Fireworks, yeah.
you. Fireworks. I was like, oh, where
Yeah,
have you been?
yeah, exactly. It's like that. Where have you been all my life? Kind of like, not in like a creepy way, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
your souls just really recognize each other. And as I started to study a little bit more about astrology, and not just basic astrology where you're looking at your natal chart and the houses and what planets were in the houses when you were born, but more so like karmic astrology and past life astrology and evolutionary astrology, it all started to really kind of click and make sense why certain people that we meet, and they just feel so familiar, because a lot of times you have known them in a past life. Well, your soul has known them. It could have
Mhm.
been, your soul could have been in any body. My soul could have been, in a man's body before. It could have been in an animal's body before. But it's almost like you either repeat knowing somebody, or this is the first time that your souls are meeting in this lifetime and you have a purpose together. And your charts can tell you that, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Didn't
very
our
interesting.
chart say something like that? Didn't he say that we were like married? Like one of us was a man and what other one was a
Yes, it
female?
was a loving relationship. It could have been like a mother-daughter. It could have been like a husband and wife. But it was definitely like a sort of like close, immediate family relationship.
Mm-hmm. And that would make so much sense as to why when we connected, it was just like, okay, I don't know why, but it was just like an instant comfort, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I started telling her a bunch of stuff. She started telling me a bunch of stuff, and we're telling each other stories, and they're all like interconnecting. But I love how you brought up that like you could have been in a man's body, because I feel
Mhm.
like it's kind of hard for people to like realize those types of things in this lifetime of that, like, we weren't always a female, or Andrew wasn't always a masculine in all of his lifetimes. Like I was absolutely a guy in one of, or multiple lifetimes. I know I was, because I could feel like the masculine in me.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, you may have inhabited a woman's body in this lifetime to
Mm,
teach you something, right? To teach you how that, masculine and feminine polarity, and how to embody a little bit more of your feminism. So,
right.
astrology, I feel like, is just such a wonderful way to understand like your current blueprint in life, and, take that subtle energy and how do you work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that 100%. I think, what about the idea? I don't know where this stems from, but the idea that we kind of are born into groups, like these soul groups.
Mm,
And so, like, you were eventually going to meet each other because, she is or was or whatever a part of that soul group. So you're kind of like location based, or those paths are going to cross eventually.
I totally believe that. I haven't heard or studied that too much in that sense, but just knowing the people that are around me right now and looking at our charts together, there
mm-hmm.
are definitely more people like Laura and ourselves that we're supposed to meet. And I think, Laura, you may agree that there are a lot of people in our field right now that we know, we're intertwined like we're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
um, meet for whatever reason. So I definitely believe that there could definitely be soul groups of people that are supposed to live out some sort of purpose in each lifetime.
Right. Like soul tribe members, and tribe would
Yeah.
have to be more than one. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And interesting enough, actually, like the crossing paths vibe, Audrey Sweet was across the hallway from my high school best friend.
Oh, wow.
My, Yeah, so my best friend from high school was moving out of the suites. And she wrote to me like, "Hey, I know you're trying to get your massage thing started. Like, I found this building. You want to move next to me?" And I was like, "I don't have any clients. I don't know if I should go from like 0 to 100." But I would thought like maybe I should follow in your footsteps and go into this suite setting. And she was right across the hallway from Audrey the whole
Yeah,
time.
and that particular individual, she definitely always stood out to me as someone that like just had such a nice aura and such a nice vibe. Anytime she posted anything or on her Instagram, I always got such good vibes from her. And the fact that she prompted you to get the suite and we met, I definitely feel like in this lifetime. So my north node is in Leo. So when we're looking at the nodes, the south node is your past life and the north node is your purpose in this life. So I am a Scorpio. However, my north node is in Leo. And so I know that Laura was placed here in my life to show me how to embody more of a Leo personality, because I am very grounded. I am a little bit more of an introvert. So I know my path is to put myself out there more and do stuff like this. Like I've probably 5 years ago would have never jumped on a podcast or talks in front of the world. So I know that Laura is one of the people in my life that is supposed to show me how to embody the characteristics of a Leo.
Yeah, I love that. Which makes sense because all my life I attracted a lot of Leos, and then the internet showed it to me as well because I started a 12 sign channel and the comparison in views was crazy. So it was just kind of like, why not give it to Leo people? So that definitely makes a lot of sense too. And also, somehow, some way interconnects as well because Andrew is also in a position of putting himself out more there, kind of like indirectly through
which
me.
is funny because I'm a Leo.
Yeah.
Like I'm a
Well,
Leo
I'm a
sun.
Scorpio. However, in my progressed chart, I am a Capricorn sun and a Virgo moon, with
Interesting.
Sagittarius rising. So now is the time where, I'm really needing to focus on that higher learning and at the same time implementing it into my career, Capricorn, and implementing more structure, Virgo, which was not at all where I was when I was younger. However, my chart has shifted as I'm turning 44 next month. I've had a lot of those life experiences and um, situations, tower moments that have taught me a lot of the lessons that I can take into this next phase of my life. With one of them being, be more like a Leo. Put yourself out there. You're the star now. You're not the supporting actress.
Yeah.
Which I can do a really good supporting actress. I have a lot of my life. But now's supposedly my time to shine. So should be interesting.
Yeah, I think just being on a podcast is enough. Like putting yourself out there and like doing the work is
Yeah.
like the only thing you can really do.
Yeah. I almost feel like the energies and the life path and the everything doesn't give you a choice. It's like either you break out of this, particular lesson and take the lessons that you've learned and implement it, or we're just going to keep throwing it back at you until you figure it out. And, once you do, then there might be other lessons. But the cool thing is as you evolve, you can handle those lessons a little bit better or more every time.
Right.
Yeah,
Now that
absolutely.
you're moving into your 44th Scorpio season, is there anything like super specific that you're like, I will not repeat this ever again? This is fully something that I have released or evolved from. Like, is there any like really specific, maybe like spiritual lesson that you feel like was super prominent around this time of a transitioning moment into a new season or
Yeah,
solar return?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, comes at a really interesting time because we did just have these really powerful eclipse portals and, a huge cycle ending. Just understanding what I've been seeing in my chart and realizing that Chiron, which is the wounded healer, is in my seventh house, which is the house of, you know, relationships and love. And also Taurus is a lot about self-worth. So, just I think understanding to really value myself, right? It's okay to put myself first. Like I said, I've been a really good supporting actress for a lot of my life. And, as service providers, and you'll know, Laura, we give a lot to other people. So just really keeping front of mind to, just value myself and really put my self-worth at, a higher level than maybe it was in the past. So going into this new year, and I guess this new cycle, this new chapter, just really having that self-love, self-worth, and self-value front of mind for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's huge and really important too. And it's not an easy journey.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What got you into astrology? Like tell us your kind of, I don't know, brief summary of your spiritual journey.
Um, so it wasn't astrology first. So I really got into spirituality itself at when in 2018. It was a rough time in my life, and I think I just needed something. I just needed like a light at the end of the tunnel. And I began to go to church, a Christian church, with my sister, and I really loved it. I definitely felt, the spirit move. However, I also have really always loved like crystals and like the moon cycles and like new moon, full moon stuff. Um, so, that I guess was the catalyst for
Right.
my spiritual awakening. But I think over the years, just, out of sheer curiosity, understanding that there's a lot out there that can really speak to what might be going on outside of just what meets the eye. And I think astrology is a huge part of that. So I've always been into like the moon and the cycles and doing like moon rituals and stuff. But it was really this past like year and a half that I started to dive a little bit deeper, and probably in the last 6 months that I began to take it a little bit more seriously in terms of education and working with mentors and coaches, namely the astrologer that came into my energy field, and it just felt like such a good fit to get readings and learn a little bit from him. And then subsequently my current coach, who I'm, have embarked on a 6-month program with, where we dive even deeper and go past just the basics and really truly understanding astroherbology, all about the houses, all about the planets, all about how they affect the body systems, the body. And of course, that interested me because we are body workers, right? We provide body services. So, to really understand how the subtle energies of the planets can manifest either in maybe in a negatively towards the body, I thought perhaps could help somebody at some point really understand, this is part of your astrological blueprint. If you have these challenging aspects or planets in certain houses, this can manifest into chronic issues or body-based issues. So I really wanted to understand how to offer a little bit more of a holistic remedies besides just the in-studio services. Why can't it be holistic in the sense that you really understand, if I have this malefic planet in this house, it's going to cause me chaos in my life, potentially. So, being able to offer not only myself, but my clients an opportunity or a way to transform that, alchemize that, fix that,
Mm-hmm.
should they want to, right? To me, I think is a beautiful thing.
Right. Yeah, I definitely connect that whole like body to the spirituality and astrology type. I think I actually sent a video to Andrew to watch that was talking about like the 2.5 days that each of the moon is in the cycles, and we were actually like, looking at the calendar and looking into the charts of the way the moon cycles are, as well as the body part that things are ruled by. Like Aries is ruled by the head. They call Aries hot-headed people. And you ask an Aries if they get a lot of headaches, they'll probably say, yeah, why? You know?
Right. It's so interesting. I had a client that was having issues with her calves and they just like it would not go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked, well, what's your sign? Sagittarius. And I was like, well, Sagittarius rules the legs, right?
Mm.
So that means that you're being pushed to like begin something.
Right.
You're feeling stuck maybe in physically, right?
Mm-hmm. Like your
Metaphorically or
direction.
actually, right? So that could be why you oftentimes get issues in that area. So I think it's pretty cool to just be able to offer, a different perspective. And, the fact that you guys started this podcast and are starting the conversation around topics that normally people write off as pseudoscience or woo-woo
Mm-hmm.
is pretty cool because I actually believe that there is a lot of truth behind it and a lot of science behind it um, and a lot of tangible results and outcomes from communing with these energies. I've experienced them myself, and I know others that have definitely experienced the real life tangible outcomes just by harnessing and communing with these energies and having a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more of an understanding of how they can affect us.
Right.
Yeah, that's really neat. Do you have crossover? Like, I mean, both of you working in the bodywork space, this is more of a business question for me. How many of your clients that come in are asking for either like more of the spiritual stuff or it just kind of like happens? Like, do you like have a percentage if you could guess off the top of your head?
Well, I can't
Um,
quantify it. I'm
no,
sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
no. I was like, I was gonna actually say that like our names are pretty
Yeah.
coherent with each other. She's body magic, so she
Mhm.
throws in a little bit of that in there of like, all right, come on, spiritual people, align with
Right. This
me.
is not your typical bodywork
Right,
space.
right.
Body
Yeah.
magic is in the
Mm-hmm.
name, right? I
Yeah.
believe magic. Um,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, I definitely feel like I've been in the space for a year and a half, and I've definitely attracted clients that are a lot more open, um, and some that are probably even part of my soul tribe because I feel like we have that familiarity. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mhm.
definitely not the type of practitioner who's like, we should have an astrology reading and we should
Yeah.
learn everything about you and tell me
Uh-huh.
everything. I let it happen naturally. And if they bring it up, then all right, holds
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like when I decided on my name for higher level healing. I
Mhm.
did it so specifically that I'm like, okay, there's a little bit of that like in there
Yeah,
to
like if
get
you know, like if you're a spiritual person and you see that, you're like, oh, okay. Like you kind of have like
right.
a, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I was just curious because it's a hard thing to couple like with how do I say this? It's hard to couple with physical activities and then
Mm,
get people to think or want to see results outside of just like a basic tarot reading or an astrology
right.
reading for the general public.
Right. Well, like a lot of the times too, like our bodies talking to us, like in Chinese medicine, the right side is males and the left side is female. So if I have a client that I know is open to those types of things and that wants to work with their energy, hence like energy work, Audrey does breath work, like the work is needed. I'll say like, okay, you're tighter in the left side's female. So if you're a female, it's either you or you might be holding on to some resentment towards a female. And then the light bulbs that go off in these people's heads and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to forgive her, don't I? And I'm like,
Yeah.
so there is that type of like when the client's open to it. But if I know they're not like that, if I don't feel that vibe off of them, hey, welcome in for your massage, lay down, no talking, nothing much. How's the pressure? All right, have a great day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I don't think it's like, we're calling in these people, but I think we're calling in these people. I think our energy, or whatever, what's written in the stars are calling in a lot of our clientele that just kind of vibe with our vibe. But yeah, there's definitely those that either they're not letting on that they're curious or that they have some sort of practice that they do or some sort of like curiosity. And, to Laura's point, you just remain professional and provide the service and keep it moving.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting because I feel like the overlap for sure is probably more common in the body workspace than other spaces.
Right.
So it's just, yeah, curious.
And I feel like also with the way that we advertise or promote ourselves, like our marketing, like you can tell, like I'm posting things about like the connection to our nervous system and our emotions and our this and our that, or the chakras. And Audrey is the same thing. Like you walk into Audrey's suite, it literally looks like you're in space. Like she has like the moon projection and the stars. Mine, it looks like you're underwater. So it's almost interesting that we both decided to create a space that gives the client a way to escape reality without actually like having to fully escape,
But it's also still tied to your spiritual beliefs, which is really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So question for Audrey. Synchronicities. This is something we talked about beforehand. Any of these, any like new recently or anything specific come to mind?
Yes. So in taking this apprenticeship course, and we go into a lot, in addition to astrology, we're also practicing rituals at certain times of the astrological cycle. So within these rituals, obviously we're using candles, we're using the herbs, we are doing the meditation and the visualization, we're doing the breath work, we're dropping into our body. So a lot of stuff comes up. So in a recent meditation, we were prompted to think of a symbol that would signify a sign that would show us like our next step for like whatever. This is, just speaking in terms of like business, because I do want to expand this a little bit more with another business that I have outside of body magic. So the particular symbol that came up was a rose. It just kept coming up, a rose, a rose, a rose, a rose. And I realized that a couple things. So this was actually pretty wild. So when I was little, I think I was probably like 6 or 7 years old. My grandmother, she lived downstairs from us. She had this really beautiful rose garden always. So she always had really beautiful roses. And one time I was in that particular yard, and I was backing up and I didn't realize I backed up into the rose bush. And I got the thorns cut me on my arm. So I have 3 lines that are very faint, 3 very faint little scars on my arm. Chills just thinking about it. So I have 3 very faint little scars on my arm from these thorns, right? So, like, I kid you not, the very next day, I had like a new client, and on her arm was the tattoo of a rose inside of mirror. And it's like, so it was a mirror and there was a rose in the middle. So it's almost like I was looking at her arm. I was looking at myself as being the rose. Right. And then she had tattoos on her rib cage of 3 random lines, like one shorter than the other, just like the scar on my arm. And the Venus symbol, so speaks to astrology, speaks to Libra being the ruler of my chart, speaks to me having, 6 planets in Libra when I was born. So, I evolved through and learned through relationships and love. And then I looked at her pointer finger, and she literally had like a ring with like it was almost like, glowing, kind of like the solar eclipse. And this was like 2 days before the solar eclipse.
Wow.
So this all happened like right after I did that meditation, and like the rose would not go away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty wild.
is so wild.
So it almost makes me think like even more deep, like Scorpios were the investigators, right? So it almost like makes me like dig a little deeper. Like, was I some sort of like part of some sort of like goddess community in the past where, like when you think about goddess, think about like Venus and roses and, all those sorts of things. So it's really interesting because I have another business that I started about 4 years ago and dropped, right? Called Fearless Heart Wellness, right? So it's been just kind of sitting there, and I've recently started to kind of revive it, or am leaning towards reviving it. And it's like, that's so funny that I thought about that business name. I thought about everything that it stood for and everything, the process behind it, or all of the things that are kind of dropping into my fields now.
Right.
So it's almost like you start things or you implement things or you have an idea or you create something, but it might not really be relevant to you for years to come. But when it clicks and it hits, it's like, whoa.
Right.
And it never ceases to amaze me. Like every time there is like a synchronicity or like a weird number thing, and me and Laura have this happen all the time where we're like exchanging stories like, well, this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. Like you can like talk for hours about all the synchronicities, but I would have to say, to your question, Andrew, that was probably the most like whoa thing that happened recently.
That's a big one. That's a really big one.
Yeah, it was wild. I was like, all right, where's Ashton? Am I being punked right now?
Yeah, no, the three scars is crazy.
Yeah, just like random 3 lines next to a Venus symbol and like a mirror on her arm with a rose in the middle. It's like almost like if you look at her arm, you're looking back at yourself and you're the rose. It's just wild.
Yeah.
Have you done any sort of meditation post this event to like, I don't know, sit with it, I don't know, explore it, whatever?
Not around like the rose theme. So within this training or program, there's meditations all the time. And in fact, the 6-month program I just supplemented with a month intensive where we're doing 2 rituals a week. So
wow.
Yeah, a lot of the themes are similar, but the one where the rose came up, the title of it was Heart-Centered Healer. So I thought it was really interesting because that name of that other business is Fearless Heart.
Right. Yeah. That's so interesting too, is that when you brought up Leo, because Leo is ruled by the heart. And that is interesting. Yep. That is your North Node and moving towards that. And also, as I said before, like that I have like more of like that like masculine, harder energy. And the fact that you indicated like seeing a mirror in a rose, you were or are like one of the people throughout like the last like couple months for me that like has helped me kind of like be more in like the feminine, softer energy. So I'm kind of wondering if like that has something to do with like hand in hand of your purpose, because rose gives me like feminine, looking in the mirror, like seeing the softer part in yourself, you getting like that on you. And like, I don't know, I'm just like making connections in my head and like connecting it to how because I always try to learn from everybody all the time, like no matter what's happening, like even if you're aware that I'm paying attention to it or not. And like specifically you and Katie have been two people that have really helped me get more into like that softer and less like hard demeanor.
Yeah.
So I find that interesting that you have that connection of heart to rose. Something.
Yeah. And the thorns, right? The thorns that created those 3 scars, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think speaks to the masculine aspect of the rose, right?
Right.
It's not all soft, right? It's how do we learn from those hard masculine lessons and move back towards softness and love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow. That was, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
sometimes I blow my own mind.
Right.
Do you feel like, because this is something I struggle with. So you had the meditation, and then you had, this synchronicity event happen. Do you feel that you are creating this event, or do you feel more of like the lady with the rose tattoo would have been there anyways, and you were just more aware to it, or maybe a combination of both?
I think a combination of both. I think a combination of both. I mean, there's definitely some moments where like I can't make this shit up. But I think definitely a combination of both. I think once something comes into your energy field and or a vision comes up or something pops up that you didn't create but or elicit, and it's just so random, I think you're definitely more open to that energy and then calling in more experiences that maybe can help you connect the dots. But I'm definitely of the mind of everything's so connected that I don't think it was coincidence. But yeah, right. We have the ability to move the energy, I think, where we may want it to go just by being at a certain frequency. So, um, you know, calling in a brand new client who had never seen before like that could definitely have been just because my frequency was in that direction for sure.
Right. And then you got the physical confirmation of the frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's one for the books for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many other ones, but I've always told myself I've really got to write this stuff down, and I never do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting actually because some people that are watching this may have been one of the people that like ordered a manifestation kit from me when I used to give those gold $100 bills. I actually sent the video to Andrew and I bought a couple of them, and I still have your thing getting built up, your little spiritual package situation. But I brought Audrey one of them, and when I walked in, she already had one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Audrey, like, did I give you that? And now you have two? And she's like, no, I had this on my own. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like one of my favorite spiritual gifts to give people. So the fact
That's
that like
crazy.
you already had one is just like super crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the numbers on it were 88888.
Yes, with
Like
all
those
the
are Laura's
eight.
numbers. And
Mhm.
I remember you told me that you didn't even look to
No, I just
see
picked them
like
up.
what was on them. You just grabbed the pile.
Oh, so they're like
Mhm.
random numbers essentially?
Yeah, the old one, well, the past one, or the one that you
Mhm.
already had, what is like a bunch of nines, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had a
I
stack
see.
like that. But that was like 2, 3 years ago. I was giving out ones with nines on it, but I like haven't gone. So when I
And we
picked up,
bought it from the same store. So I was in that same
right,
store that you purchased it from with my daughter one day,
Rocky.
and it drew my attention and I grabbed it. And then I always use it as a bookmark in like any book that I'm reading, especially the book, The Magic.
Right.
I always use that as a bookmark. And if I lend the book out, I'm like, you have to use it with this gold, you know, bill.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you told me where you bought it, I was like, I literally bought mine from the same
Right. So that's
store.
even crazier that we were both in the same spot at one point in time. How many some
Yes.
odd years ago, just not at the same moment, but
Yes.
that's how energy works. Don't you ever meet people and you're like, oh, yeah, I went to here for school, or I went there. I used to go here all the time. And you're like, yeah, me too.
Oh, totally. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
strange. It is such a interesting, I don't know, experience.
Yeah. That stuff is definitely one that like I try to pay attention to when I see like because I'm observant all the time. I was also a lifeguard though, and I'm also a Pisces.
Makes sense.
But when you're a lifeguard, like for we have to scan. So I know how to scan in that way. So now I just feel like I do it with life. But I don't know if like I see like, okay, I've seen you way too many times, or that wasn't here the last time I was here, or like things like that. So I feel like that like observational energy is pretty helpful in like making these connections like faster.
And that's definitely something I can learn from you because I'm not as observant as I probably should be or would like to be. I'm more like, again, more inner world, more introverted, more Scorpio darkness. But I think I need to really pay attention and be more present to the world around me.
Right. I just feel like they're always in constant communication. So, I mean, it's a little bit different since I'm like picking up tarot cards like most of my week, opposed to touching bodies most of the time anyway. It's kind of like in the wheelhouse of like the job per se, or like what I decided to do. So I'll look around all the time and they really are always talking to us. And even some of the times too, like I'll check in on Audrey or she'll check in on me. And I'm like, how did you know?
And I'll be like, how did you know I needed a message from you?
Mm-hmm. So I think
Yeah,
those things are really cool.
there's something to say like when you're tapped in all the time and it just becomes like second nature.
That's why I had to learn how to like not take things personally, because like since I'm so observant and teaching myself how to feel people's energy and like stuff like that, like sometimes people are just in a bad mood because something is going on with them and it doesn't have to do with like specifically like me or like something. But as being so observant, it's someone walks in a room and I'll be able to tell if their vibe is different from the last time I saw them. And then, you know, the overthinking starts. All right, well, did I do something to make this person feel
Mhm.
this way? So like that, like being so observant, like, yeah, it has its like great points, but then also it does cause anxiety sometimes because you're so observant and you could see even the slightest change of energy. And then it kind of like creates a thought process sometimes.
Like trying to connect, the spiritual astrology, all that experience or energy and experiencing that with like mental health
Mm-hmm.
and like how do you use the information that we're getting like with what you know about mental health and the way to like have a positive outcome and not maybe spiral more into anxiety or depression or whatever it is.
Well, that's why I feel like spirituality is kind of like there's like that's why we're here on this podcast, because there's like
Mm-hmm.
the woo woo aspect of it, and then there's kind of like the super logical people, and then you kind of have like people like us who are in the middle. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, and I, through my experience, they're just in communication with us. It's not that anybody's special. So, for example, I
Yeah.
will see someone, like, for example, I'll see my ex's name and I'll know I'm seeing this person's name because they're probably going to reach out to me. It doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that I'm seeing this name because the divine is telling me that they're the one and that we're supposed to be together forever. And I just keep seeing his name. So that must be that we're supposed to be together. I don't feel like that is the way that it's being communicated. I feel like they're just like, hey, the energy of this person is coming into your orbit. Here's a sign. And I almost feel like some of the times it's warnings. I don't always feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's a divine,
Yeah,
amazing,
for
blah,
sure.
blah, blah, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so not always rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns, for sure.
Right.
yeah, absolutely. With that, I mean, you've been practicing for quite a while, Audrey. I don't know how long you said you started kind of getting in like 2018, but like when you've been working with your own energy for so long, like you start to be able to be like, okay, well, this one moment is like divine intervention for sure. And then all these other moments are like little hints or, glimpses,
Mhm.
but they're still communications. But
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
like without the experience, it seems like everything's divine intervention. Like if you don't have like the background and I think, it's makes it hard to navigate I mean, at least for me when I was younger, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And that's why I mentioned that, because I feel like there is that big thing of like, well, I got a sign from or about it, or I saw this or I saw this, so it must mean this. And then you'll have someone in, like, someone who's not part of it, like say you're giving them advice and you're just kind of like, well, okay, that person was like the worst person in the world towards you. And they're like, I don't care. I'm seeing this person's name. They must be the one. And that's why I feel like where spirituality and like stuff like that, like in signs, get a bad rep, because there is that like, we don't know why it's happening.
Yeah.
We'll have to experience it out and see it. But people go straight to like, it's meant to be.
It's like, what does it mean for you versus what do you want it to mean for you?
Right.
Yeah. And again, those are just the lessons that they have to learn. You know, maybe they want the advice, maybe the advice doesn't land for them at all. Maybe they don't want the advice. But what I think I'm learning is everyone's journey is different.
Yeah.
And, you know, by focusing on my journey, I can attract the right people into my life, into my energy field, into my space. And, you know, because I am inquisitive and because I'm learning, it just helps me really be able to discern who is not for me. And I think I would like to believe that everybody at some point in their life will learn this. But it's different for everybody. You know, does it happen when you're 29 or does it happen when you're 38? Who knows, right? Everyone's journey is individual and unique.
Yeah.
Which is what's great about it. I think it goes to show just how different everybody is. But like we're all very different, but we're so intertwined and interconnected
Yeah.
that it's
I
powerful
probably
stuff.
should have been a psychologist instead of like a body worker. But,
That's
you
actually
know,
what I went to school for, and then I dropped out because I was like, oh, I'm not doing this.
this is so boring.
Yeah, it was. I was like, no, 4 years of this, and I'm in class about the history of the War of 1945 because you guys want more of my money. Like, no, I'm not becoming a psychologist. But that's interesting that you had that too.
Because that, you know, I think humans, souls in general, just intrigue me so much. That's
Right.
probably why I'm so into this astrology, because a lot of it's right there on the page.
Mm-hmm.
You can't deny it. You know, when you look at your own chart, when you look at other people's charts, when you put the charts together, like there's so much information there, so much information, so much so that I don't even know it all yet, right? That it's like kind of undeniable.
Are you going to eventually like offer like astrology readings to people after your mentorship?
Yeah, I will. But with the purpose of really helping them implement what we see in their charts in practical habits and routines. And if they want rituals,
Right.
it's not for everybody, but at least practical habits and routines that will help them work with the subtle energies that we see in their chart. It's almost like a cheat code, I feel like.
Right. No, it definitely is. I used to always get solar return readings. So whenever I would turn a new age, my astrologer would read me my next year ahead. And she was very cutthroat, no sugarcoat. When I would give her, like, I remember I gave her like somebody's chart and she looked into it and she was like, yeah, in a past life, this person got you killed. So I would probably like stay away from them in this life. I was like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
But very straightforward she was. And some of the things she said that she saw in my chart, I'm like, no, there's no way. Like, it'll be fine. I'll never leave here. I'll never do that. And now as a reader for tarot, although it's a little bit more general, not as specific, same type of thing. I'm like, well, okay, maybe not now, but your perception will change in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely seen, you know, to your point, my chart against someone else's chart, and there's not some not very nice things there.
Right.
Some of the stuff I already knew about. Some of the stuff I was like, didn't come as a surprise to me. And some of the stuff that he saw was like, I see why the way it is now, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I think, the synastry readings are also super important.
It helps you understand like the dynamic where it could be like a little bit like confusing per se.
Yeah.
Because I never knew why I was like this my whole life. But like I was saying in like one of our first episodes, like once I found out what my moon and my rising was, I was like, oh, this is why I'm so hyper.
Audrey, I do have one last question for you, and I think this
Sure.
will be helpful. What has been, if you could leave just one thing with the audience, what has been the most helpful thing for you, be it practice, ritual, or saying, or mantra, whatever, to navigate your spiritual journey just as a human?
Definitely, if I look back on everything, that was kind of like piecemeal and getting some information from over here, getting information from over there, reading an article from this astrologer or that tarot reader, is really just to kind of hone in on one or two practices or studies. And if you can, if you're able to work with someone that already has the knowledge and can be either a mentor or a partner or a friend to you. Like, obviously, Laura's not my mentor, but we learn a lot from each other. So just to have the right people in your space, in your energy fields, work navigating this with you, and really sticking to one source at a time. I think I fell into a little bit of burnout, trying to almost like a spiritual burnout, trying to glean the information from so many different sources and that's like my MO. Like, I'll try to get as much information as I can, get through it as quickly as I can. But learning to slow down and just really absorb, integrate, and implement has been a game changer for me, and getting the answers and the guidance that I've, probably been seeking for 42 years.
Yeah,
So,
great.
just kind of like focus on one thing at a time. And yeah, partner with others, but really understand that it's at the end of the day, your journey and your own responsibility. Like your path, your journey, your healing is your responsibility, but others can facilitate or give you some guidance, but ultimately it's you.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank
Awesome.
you so much, Audrey.
So thank you, Audrey, for coming on. Thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.